Welcome to the Wardrill Faction Dossier. My name is Sarv, and if you follow the weekly meta report, this is its sibling show. The weekly report covers the whole field in one pass. The dossier picks one faction and goes as deep as the data lets us. The players, the lists, who they actually played into, and what the math says about all of it. I should say up front, I play Ultramarines myself, so this one is a little personal. I will keep myself honest and let the data lead. Today, it is the big one, the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines. And I mean big, literally. This is the most played army in the game right now, the biggest sample we track. Necrons are close behind, 77 lists to Marines 82, so it is not a runaway, but Marines hold the edge. If you play Marines, this is the one you have been waiting for. The reason they earned the chair this week is that they are climbing. They opened the edition looking ordinary, and they have gotten better every serious weekend since. Before we start, the usual honesty. All of this is BCP data, grand tournaments of 5 rounds or more, and the edition is 3 weekends old. Space Marines give us the biggest sample of anyone, so I hold these numbers a little tighter than most, but it is still early, so treat every trend as an early read. One more bit of housekeeping. I read a lot of player names on this show, straight off the tournament software. If I mangle yours, I apologize in advance. Correct me in the comments, and I will get it right next time. Let's open the dossier. The health check. 82 Space Marine lists out of 1,033 so far. That is right around 8% of the entire field, and it is the single biggest faction sample in the game, with Necrons close behind at 77 lists. The win rate sits at 52.1% across 442 games, which is 8th of the 31 factions in the data. So Marines are not the top of the table, but they are in the upper third, and they are there on more games than anyone, which makes the number the most trustworthy on the board. 41 of the 82 lists finished with a winning record, 12 of them podiumed, and 3 took an outright event win. Now the trend, and I want to give you the honest shape of it, not the tidy version. The opening weekend, June 20th, just 5 lists, so call that one noise, 34%. The first real weekend, June 27th, 34 lists, and the number climbed to 48%. There is a small slice the very next day, June 28th, only 2 lists at 75%, too few to read anything into. July 3rd added 7 more lists, holding around 48%, and the newest big weekend, July 4th, another 34 lists, and it jumped to 58%. So it opened rough on a tiny sample, held steady through the middle, and its strongest showing yet is the most recent big weekend. One more note for calibration. Out in the wider pool, the smaller events and the opens, Marines sit at 52.7% across 262 lists, almost exactly where the GT table has them. My read is simple. This is the most played, best understood army in the game, and the pilots are steadily solving it. Inside the faction, here's how the lists actually split up, and there is one detachment you need to meet first. If you have watched other dossiers on this channel, you have heard me call the Librarius Conclave the recurring villain, the psychic brick that keeps turning up across the table, beating people up. Here's the reveal. It is a Space Marine detachment, and it is not a fringe pick. Count every Marine list that runs it, and the Librarius Conclave shows up in 47 of the 82. More than half the faction, at 57%. The villain was ours the whole time. I have some history with this one myself. I ran the Librarius Conclave back in 10th edition, and it was not competitive then, more of a pet project than a real plan. In 11th, splashing the Conclave in costs just 1 detachment point, straight off the game data, and for the first time, that price actually earns its slot. Now, most of these armies field 2 detachments at once. 3 detachment points buys a pair, and 1 pairing rises above the rest. Forgefather Seekers, together with the Librarius Conclave, 19 lists at 63%. That is the best populated winning recipe in the faction, the Salamanders-flavored Melta and Flamer shell bolted onto the Psychic Core. Level with it on Trust but smaller, the Hammer of Averni and Librarius Conclave pairing. Only 4 lists, but 67%, and it owns the faction's cleanest event win. Then Blade of Ultramar, the one that runs solo, 12 lists at 55%. And the Cold End tells the other half of the story. The Conclave paired with Spearpoint Task Force is 7 lists at 39%, and Subversion Assets, wherever it turns up, drags at 35%. Same psychic engine, very different results. So the real shape is this. The Librarius Conclave is the backbone of the whole faction, but it wins with Forgefather's Seekers and the Hammer, and it stalls with the Raider detachments. The engine is not enough on its own. It matters what you bolt it to. Zoom out from the detachment labels, and the 82 lists collapse into 4 real army ideas. Build 1, the Conclave Gunline. Sternguard and Infernus squads with the Librarian riding along, the Psychic buff turning a bolter volley into something that actually threatens elites. This is the backbone, the 47 lists we just walked through, sitting at 57%. Build 2, the Salamander's Melt-a-Shell. Forgefather Seekers wrapped around that same conclave. Vulcan Heston, Adrax Agatone, Infernus Flamers, and a stack of Land Raiders, built to drive up the board and melt whatever it reaches. 19 lists at 63%, the best populated winner in the faction. Build 3, the Terminator Hammer. The Hammer of Averni detachment, Thunder Hammer Terminator bricks that are hard to shift and hit like a truck, leaning on durability instead of speed. Small so far, 4 lists, but 67% and an event win. And Build 4, the Raider game. Shadowmark Talon and Subversion assets, the fast, infiltrating, jump and strike lists. On paper, it is the most exciting Marine army. On the tables, it is the coldest, the Subversion detachment dragging at 35%. 2 of today's reviews are winners off those top shells. 1 Melta, 1 Hammer, both 5-0. The third is a Raider-flavored Conclave list that went 3-2 by the width of a few dice, and it shows exactly where the fast build runs out of road. Now the units, and this is the table I would screenshot if you are building Marines this month. Intercessors and Scouts are in 61% of lists each, the Librarian in half of them. Those are your board control and Conclave auto-includes, and like auto-includes everywhere, they sit right around 50%. Because everyone runs them so they cannot separate winners from losers. Read past those. 3 units are the ones I would circle. The Land Raider Redeemer shows up in a third of every list, and the lists running it average 60%, a genuine standout for a model that expensive. Vulcan Hestan, in a bit over a quarter of lists, carried at 62, and Adrax Agatone right behind him at 61. See the pattern? The Salamander's characters and their transport are quietly the best performing pieces in the faction. Down the sheet, the Infernus Flamer squad at 57, Marnius Calgar at 57, and the Lieutenant with a combi weapon, 89 points on average, in nearly half of all lists at 56. Now the warning label. The Repulsor Executioner is the big, expensive centerpiece, 364 points, in a third of lists, and it carries a 44% win rate. It looks incredible, and it keeps missing its weekend. The Ballistus Dreadnought and the Jump Pack Assault Intercessors are in the same soft bracket. Everything else is on your screen. Marines look like a squad game, but the winning lists live and die on their leader attachments, and the pairings are remarkably consistent. The single most repeated attachment in the whole faction is a Librarian joining a Sternguard veteran squad, 28 times across these lists. That is the Librarius Conclave in one sentence. A Psyker climbs inside a shooting squad and makes the bolters bite. Right behind it, the same Librarian tucked into an Infernus Flamer squad, 18 times. Then the named characters running their signature bodyguards. Adrax Agatone leading Blade Guard veterans, 10 times. Vulcan Hestan with company heroes, 9. Marnius Calgar and Cato Sicarius both riding the Victrix Honor Guard, 8 and 7. There is a quieter fast line too. Kayvon Shrike dropping in with Jump Pack Vanguard veterans, and Subodin Khan leading Outriders for the Raider players. If you use the Wardrill app, here is my honest tip for the week. Run the leader attachment drills on the Librarian into Sternguard and the Adrax into Blade Guard pairs. Knowing exactly what the character adds to the squad without checking 3 cards mid-turn is free percentage. Matchups. This is every Space Marine game we captured so far. All event sizes, so a wider net than the GT table, and the best picture we have this early. And the headline is that Marines are the most balanced army on the board. There is no free lunch and no death sentence, just a lot of games sitting near the middle. Start with the green. The one with real volume behind it is World Eaters, 67% over 42 games. A genuine good lane against a scary army. Chaos Knights, Black Templars, Astra Militarum, and Dark Angels all sit high, though the last two are close to home Imperium fights. And here is a cross-reference for anyone who watched the Tau dossier. Imperial Knights, the lane Tau Dread, Marines handle it, 54% over 54 games. The wound count problem that stops a precision gun army is a lot smaller when you can drive a Land Raider up and punch it. Now the red. Space Wolves are the worst lane on the board, 38% over 29 games, the intra-Astartes rival matchup, and it is real enough to respect. Drukhari and Leagues of Votann are soft spots too. And then the one that matters most because it is the largest sample here. Necrons, 76 games, 47%. Slightly under the line, and it is the army Marines face more than any other. I am not going to force one reason on all of it. Marines are a jack-of-all-trades army, and that cuts both ways. Few blowouts, few gimmies. If you are taking the Astartes to an event this month, the Space Wolves mirror is the rep to practice, and do not treat the Necron table like a buy. Calc Corner. This is the segment only Wardrill can do because the app carries a full damage engine, the same one behind the heat map. We just flagged Necrons as the biggest lane and the hard targets as the reason Marines have soft spots, so let's put 3 of them under the lamp with guns off today's featured lists. Scenario 1, the Sledgehammer. A 10-model Terminator Assault Squad off Chris Cardamone's champion list, Thunderhammers, on the charge, buffed into a knight-sized target. The Engine Call, 32.1 expected damage against a 28 wound knight, with a 91% chance of finishing it in that single fight. So the answer is yes, usually, in one go, though it is not a guaranteed one-shot. Scenario 2, the Precision Answer. A Ballistis Dreadnought, las cannon and missiles, buffed into a Land Raider Redeemer, a 2+ save with 16 wounds. The Engine Call, 8.3 expected damage, with only a 6% chance of wiping the 16 wound tank in that single round. This is the clean anti-tank shot, high strength and armor penetration into heavy armor. And Scenario 3, and it is the one that surprised me most working through it. The Conclave's signature drill, a librarian-buffed Sternguard veteran squad, and this time I turned on everything the buffs actually earn. Oath of Moment re-rolling every hit, the squad's own Sternguard focus ability re-rolling every wound, the Fusillade relic turning 5s into critical wounds against a big target, and Rapid Fire putting every bolter at full rate. Fire that at a Catan shard of the Nightbringer, and it's 4+ invulnerable. The Engine Call, about 19 expected damage against a 16 wound Catan, and a 20% chance to wipe it in one committed activation. Sternguard are my favorite squad in this codex, so here's the honest version of that fondness. The 4+ invulnerable never actually gets rolled. Fusillade's crits on 5s land on the exact roll the bolters already need to wound, so almost every wound that lands is a devastating wound, and devastating wounds skip the save and the invulnerable both. My favorite squad plays every card correctly and takes the invulnerable out of the fight entirely. And the Catan still walks away 4 times out of 5. What actually holds the line is 3 things. Toughness 11 means even a boosted bolter still needs a 5 to wound. Necrodermis floors every point of damage it touches, so the squad's heavy bolters come down from 2 damage to 1. The bolt pistols never fire at all. Rule 2407 benches them since every model in the squad is already carrying a rifle or a heavy bolter. And then there is a feel no pain of 5+ sitting quietly on the Catan's own datasheet, easy to miss next to the flashier abilities, that grinds away roughly a third of whatever damage survives all of that. That last one is the honest hook of the segment. It is why you check the whole card instead of skimming the stat line everybody already knows. List Review 1, and it is the faction's cleanest event win. Chris Cardamone, the EI commencing Armageddon kickoff GT, 30 players, the Hammer of Averni and Librarius Conclave build on priority assets, 5-0, first place. Chris Cardamone, good first name, look at the composition because it is a wall. 2 10-model Terminator assault squads, Thunderhammers and Storm Shields, each one led by a character, Connacht Var on one, and a Terminator armored librarian on the other. A second librarian riding a Stern Guard squad, that Conclave attachment again. Then a heavy backfield, 2 Predator Destructors and 2 Landspeeder Vengeance for fire support, and a screen of Intercessors, Incursors, and Infiltrators holding the objectives. Now the complement. This is the Hammer of Averni doing exactly what it is for, though not the way you might guess. Its detachment rule, Calculated Annihilation, is not a durability bonus at all. It lets the army re-roll a wound roll of 1 against its Oath of Moment target, and Connacht Var can hand that target to a fresh unit the moment the first one dies, so the whole force reliably focuses fire on whatever matters most. The actual durability is in the models themselves, not the rule. Thunderhammers and Storm Shields make the army nearly impossible to move off a point while it walks up the middle. It is slow, it is durable, and it grinds. The critique is the flip side of that. This list has almost no long-range answer to a big vehicle or a fast flyer. Its plan is to weather the shooting, reach you, and cave you in with hammers. Across 5 rounds, on a mission set that rewards holding your assets, that plan held all the way to the trophy. Here is how Cardamone's weekend actually went, round by round, because a 5-0 never tells you who was across the table or how close it got. Round 1, a Tau Empire gunline, 95-35, a comfortable start. Round 2, Custodes, 100-30, a blowout. But then look at the back half, because this is a grinder's weekend. Round 3, Adeptus Mechanicus, 56-49, a 7-point game. Round 4, Gregory Moxley's Astra Militarum, who finished second overall, 80-79. He won that by a single point. And round 5, Drukari at 4-1, 100-60 to close it out. 2 of the 5 decided by 7 and by 1. That is the hammer build in one afternoon. It does not always win pretty, but it does not fall over, and it found the last bracket of points in the games that were on a knife edge. Now the posture note, because I hold everyone to it. Cardamone played priority assets all 5 rounds. In the Matrix, that posture grades flat, dead even against the field, so the mission deck handed him nothing. The Anvil won those coin flips, not the cards. Review 2 is the most copied winning shell in the faction, and a completely different flavor. Matthew Lyndon, the Checkmate GT at AVCon, 63 players, the Forgefather Seekers and Librarius Conclave build on Purge the Foe, 5-0, second on tiebreak. Where Cardamone stood still and grinded, Lyndon drives at you. Look at the engine of it. 3 Land Raider Redeemers, the exact tank our unit page just flagged at 60%, full of Flamers and Melta, rolling up the board. Vulcan Histan leads an Infernus Flamer squad. Adrax Agatone leads Blade Guard. A Captain in Gravis rides the Aggressors, and a Librarian sits in the Stern Guard for the Conclave buff. This is the Salamander's Melta shell in its purest form. Now the complement, and it is the whole point of the list. The detachment rule, Vulcan's Quest, gives every Adeptus Astartes ranged weapon in the army the assault ability and a +1 to strength against anything within 12 inches, and it lets Infernus squads shoot in the same turn they perform an action if Vulcan is on the table. Every unit in this army wants to be at close to medium range, and the whole thing is built to deliver that firepower up the table under armor. The critique is small. It leans hard on those Land Raiders surviving the drive-in. If the transport line gets cracked early against a heavy shooting army, the Melta never arrives. But if it does arrive, very little on the other side of the table is still standing. Lyndon's run is a clinic in taking the game to people. Round 1, Space Wolves, 93-56. And worth a caveat, that opponent finished last at 0-5, so it was the soft draw of the weekend. But then look what happens. Round 2, another Space Wolves list. This one, a real player who finished 17th, 100-50. Round 3, Tyranids, 100-72. Round 4, Eldari, 96-70. And round 5, Michael Wood's Chaos Demons, who finished 5th at 4-1, 100-32. That is an average margin north of 30 points, and 3 of the 5 capped at the 100-point ceiling. Now the interesting part. 2 of his wins came against Space Wolves, the single worst matchup on our board for Marines, 38% across the field. Lyndon went 2-0 into his faction's Nightmare Lane. Small sample, and one was that 0-5 opponent, so I would not tear up the matchup chart over it, but it is a nice reminder that a lane average is not a verdict on any one game. And the posture, since I promised it, Lyndon played Purge the Foe every round. Marine lists on Purge have the faction's best number this window, 59%, though that is players choosing the posture that fits their aggressive list as much as the posture itself. The matrix reads his actual pairings as flat, so I credit the Melta, not the mission. Review 3 is the other side of the coin, and it is the one I think teaches the most. Pierce Condren, the Northeast Open, 77 players, the same Librarius Conclave engine, but bolted to Shadowmark Talon, the Raider detachment, on Disruption. 3-2 on the weekend, 15th place, and stay with me because the record is not the story. Look at the list. Kayvon Shrike leads Jump Pack Vanguard veterans, Athan Sean and a squad of Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, a Drop Pod, 3 Ballistis Dreadnoughts, and a Devastator squad for fire support. It is fast, it strikes from everywhere, and it still runs the Conclave Corps, a Librarian in the Stern Guard, and 1 in a Terminator squad. On paper, it is the most dynamic list of the 3. But here is what is off, and the data has been hinting at it all episode. This is the Raider game, and the Raider game is the coldest Marine build on the table. Shadowmark Talon and its Subversion cousin sit well below the winning shells. And Condren played Disruption, which is the softest posture Marines have this window, 45% across 82 games. Small sample, so I will not hang his weekend on that alone, but the shape is the shape. A fast, clever list that lands in a lot of close games and does not have the raw durability or firepower to close them. Condren's rounds are why I wanted this list in the episode. Round 1, Necrons, 88-78, a solid win. Round 2, Emperor's Children, 92-61, comfortable. He is 2-0 and looking like a contender. Then the wheels get wobbly, and every game from here is a coin flip. Round 3, a mirror, another Space Marine list, Mark Owens, who went 5-0 and finished 3rd. Condren lost it 94-96, by 2 points. Round 4, Imperial Knights, and he wins it back, 94-92, by 2 the other way. In round 5, for a much better placing, Stephen Brains Orcs, who finished 6th at 4-1, 81-82. He lost by a single point. Read that again. 3 of his last 3 games were decided by 2, 2, and 1. That is the Raider build in one afternoon. It gets you into the room with anyone, dead level going into the final turn, and then it does not have the extra bracket of damage or the extra wound of durability to win the coin flip. Cardamone's Anvil found those points. Condren's Raiders did not. Same faction, same weekend as the winners, and the difference was a handful of dice. That is the honest lesson. The Conclave engine is real, but the fast shell asks you to win more coin flips than the durable ones do. And on the posture, since I hold everyone to it, Disruption graded flat in every one of these pairings, so I will not blame the missions. He simply spent the weekend on the edge of a knife, and the dice landed the wrong way twice. Quick pause before the crystal ball. If this deep dive is useful to you, a like and a subscribe genuinely moves the needle for a channel this size, and it tells me to keep making these. Everything you saw today, the win rates, the matchup lanes, the damage math, lives in the Wardrill app, refreshed every week. Paste your own list in, and the same engine that ran our Calc Corner will tell you exactly what your Terminators kill and what shrugs them off. iOS and Android, links below. And to my Patreon supporters, you specifically are why a one-person stat show gets to exist. Thank you. Before I sign off, 3 predictions for the next Space Marine Dossier, on the record so you can grade me. 1. The Librarius Conclave stays the backbone. 47 of 82 lists right now, 57%, and its best home, Forgefather Seekers, at 63. I expect the Psychic Core to still be in more than half of Marine lists next time, and I expect the Salamander's Melt-A-Shell to still be the top recipe. 2. The climb holds. It was not a clean three-step ladder. The two smaller weekends in between held around 48% too, but the two full-size weekends carried the story. 48%, then 58, and Marines are already 8th on the biggest sample in the game. My honest guess is they settle in the upper middle rather than rocketing to the top, because a jack-of-all-trades army tends to live around the balanced line. But if that 58 holds on the next big weekend, they are knocking on the top 5, and I will happily be wrong. Watch the weekend number, not the to-date one. And 3, the red lanes. Space Wolves at 38% over 29 games is the lane I trust to stay red, the intra-Astartes rival fight. And Necrons are the tell, 76 games at 47%, the Army Marines face most. If that Necron number tips a few points either way next time, it swings the whole faction with it, because there is so much of it. Those are my 3. Come back and hold me to them. One last thing before the dossier closes. Thank you to my Patreons, and especially our Magos operators, the names on your screen right now. You keep the Cogitator running, and shows like this one exist because of you. Thank you. That is the Space Marines faction dossier in the books. Marines, the most played army in the game, rank 8 and climbing, with no free lunches and no death sentences. A Librarius Conclave core that runs through more than half the faction, a Salamander's Melt-a-Shell that is the top recipe, and one hard lane in the Space Wolves mirror. To the pilots we covered, Chris Cardamone, Matthew Lyndon, and Pierce Condren, and everyone marching the Astartes in the early data, good hunting and thank you for the data. Now, this show's an experiment, and you are the playtesters. Was this deep enough? Too deep? Which faction should sit in this chair next? Tell me in the comments. And if the Sisters of Battle are your army, the Adepta Sororitas dossier lands next week. That is Calgar on the thumbnail, by the way, my own model. Painted him myself. As always, the data shows you what is winning. Reps on the table are what make it yours. This is Sar from Wardrill, signing out. See you at the next transmission.